He walked into the stables in scuffed boots and a coat 2 sizes too big. People laughed, thought he was lost, maybe homeless. But when he made one quiet gesture, the whole barn went silent. Because he wasn't there to impress anyone. He was there to keep a promise. And what happened next rewrote everything they thought they knew about value, memory, and the silent weight of dignity. The gravel crunched beneath worn leather boots as the man stepped out of an old pickup, its paint faded to near memory. He adjusted his coat, dust-covered canvas with sleeves frayed at the cuffs, and took in the view. Hollow Ridge stables shimmered in the morning light, all white fences, velvet halters, and polished brass nameplates. The kind of place where boots were designer and coffee came in logoed tumblers. He didn't carry a clipboard, no phone glued to his hand. Just a slow walk and eyes that looked like they'd seen both war and wild. At first, no one noticed. The crowd was too busy swarming around stall after stall, murmuring about lineage, muscle tone, and stud fees. It wasn't until he passed the groomer's circle that someone scoffed. Who let that guy in? A young handler laughed, brushing off a gelding's flank, lost his way to the feed store. Maybe. More chuckles followed. A woman in sunglasses the size of her confidence turned toward a trainer and whispered, "He smells like hay and rust." The man kept walking. He didn't flinch when someone whistled low behind him, didn't pause when a teenage boy offered him a protein bar with mock pity. Just kept his eyes ahead, taking in every horse, every stall, until he stopped. It wasn't the fanciest stall, not like the one with the imported Andalusian or the $1 million filly with braided ribbons. No, this one was quiet. Its brass plate dulled, its straw floor not freshly raked, and inside stood a black Arabian coat dulled at the haunches, a faint scar down his flank like a memory someone tried to erase. The man didn't move, just rested a hand on the edge of the stall door. The horse didn't back away. From a few yards off, someone muttered, "That's devil's dust." Shame, really. Used to be lightning. Now he won't even run. Vet says he's done. The man didn't ask. He just exhaled, slow and steady like the breath of someone who'd been holding something in for a very long time. His fingers curled slightly against the wood, not possessive, but familiar. Like he was trying to remember something the world forgot. A trainer in a crisp jacket and gleaming belt buckle approached with forced patience. "Sir, previews are over there. This one's not for show anymore." The man finally spoke, voice low but carved from stone. "I know," the trainer blinked. "You looking for something?" The man nodded once, him, then silence, not from confusion, but from the way he said it, final, like a verdict. And in that quiet, something strange happened. The black Arabian, who hadn't moved for hours, stepped forward, just once, just enough, and the whispers behind the man stopped. The stall smelled faintly of liniment and old wood, the scent of effort and endings. Dust hung in the beams of sunlight slicing through the gaps in the stable wall. Most walked by without stopping. Trainers, buyers, whispering teenagers snapping photos of the shinier horses 2 stalls down. But he stayed. The black Arabian stood in the shadows, head low, ears still but not flat, not fear, not anger, just absence. The kind that doesn't beg for attention, the kind that's been learned. A faded brass plate above the latch read, "Devil's Dust." Below it a smaller tag, "Private inquiry only." There was no pedigree on display, no ribbons hanging beside the door like trophies of the past, just a single sheet, folded once and clipped to the side. Most didn't bother reading it. Torn tendon, low prognosis, stable disposition, but withdrawn, price reduced, no refunds. The man didn't read it either. He stood with one hand resting gently on the top rail, not petting, not reaching, just there. Present, the way someone shows up to a grave not for closure but for connection. The horse blinked, a long, slow motion, like trying to remember how to trust the light. Behind him, the murmur of other buyers swelled. He was a rocket before the injury. Shame to see him like this. They're just trying to unload him now, can't even get him to trot. Ruined, but the man didn't flinch. He wasn't looking at the legs, the bloodline, the value on paper. He was looking at something else. Deep in the horse's eyes, like he was trying to find the outline of something still buried in there. Not speed, not power, stillness, survival. Devil's Dust shifted slightly, his weight favoring the uninjured leg. The man watched, but didn't move. No cluck, No coaxing, just silence, steady and unforced, like he had nowhere better to be, like he was remembering a time when he too had limped through mornings no one else saw. A young groom paused near the gate. "He doesn't like people," she said quietly, as if to spare him the embarrassment. "You can try to get him to look at you, but he won't. Not anymore." The man didn't answer. After a moment, Devil's Dust lifted his head, not fully, not dramatically, just enough for their eyes to meet, gray to black, breath to breath. It wasn't recognition, not yet, but it was contact. The groom furrowed her brow. "Huh, that's new." The man's lips barely moved. "It's not new, it's just been waiting." And then he stepped closer, one slow stride, and the stallion didn't pull away, he stayed. The morning wore on, sun rising higher over Hollow Ridge, casting long shadows across the manicured paddocks. Buyers moved from stall to stall, rattling off bloodlines and betting futures. Near the far row, laughter broke out, short, sharp, and aimed like a dart. "Hey, Grandpa," one stable hand called, waving a crumpled dollar. "Lunch on me. Or you saving up to buy a brush?" A few others snickered. A woman in tall boots and flawless posture leaned against a post, sipping from a metal flask. "Maybe he thinks he's in a museum," she said, "looking for ghosts." The old man didn't answer. He hadn't moved much in over an hour, just stood by the stall of Devil's Dust, hand occasionally brushing the edge of the wood, eyes never leaving the horse. A sleek-haired trainer in a vest that cost more than most saddles finally strode over, boots too clean to trust. "Sir," he said, voice like varnish, "I can assure you this animal is not a charity case. He's a liability." The man tilted his head slightly. "Then you won't mind letting him go?" The trainer blinked. "What? I'll buy him." More laughter, this time louder. The stable hand who offered the dollar doubled over. "He's serious." But the man didn't flinch, didn't even blink. He reached into the inner pocket of his coat and pulled out a folded paper, thick, official, bank-stamped. The trainer's smile twitched. "You understand he's priced for private sale." "That means—" "I understand," the man interrupted, calm as a sunrise. He handed over the paper. "Wire instructions are at the bottom." The trainer unfolded it. His eyes scanned, paused, then widened. $175,000, full amount, no negotiation, no delay. Around them voices fell like dominoes. First a hush, then whispers, then stillness. The man stepped back from the stall just as the head stable manager arrived, an older woman in a pressed vest and weather-worn eyes. She looked at the document, then at the man. Her face shifted, recognition settling in like dust on an old portrait. She said his name, soft but clear. "Mr. Callen." He nodded once. She exhaled. "I thought you'd left for good." "I had," he said, then looked back at the horse. "But some things don't stay buried." She turned to the others, her voice firmer now. "Process the sale." The trainer stammered, confused. "But he's a legend," she said, to both of them. The old man stepped forward, eyes never leaving Devil's Dust. The stallion didn't bolt, didn't shift, just watched him, steady, waiting. And in that moment, all the sneers, all the jokes, all the certainty about what mattered, collapsed into silence, because they realized this wasn't about price, it was about a promise. The metallic click of the stall latch echoed louder than it should have. The young groom hesitated before sliding the door open, as if she were intruding on something sacred. Devil's Dust stood still, head tilted just slightly toward the man, as if sensing something ancient had returned to finish what had been left undone. Across the stable, buyers pretended to resume their conversations, but their eyes stayed locked on the scene. The trainer, still holding the receipt with unsteady hands, squinted at the signature near the bottom. "Callen," he muttered. "J. Callen." A man beside him leaned over. "As in Jack Callen." The name moved through the barn like wind through tall grass. Another whisper, then another. "No, that can't be. He's gone. Left after the fire. I thought he was dead." "Didn't he train Dust back when he was just a colt?" "Not just trained, raised him." The stable manager stepped forward slowly. She hadn't taken her eyes off Jack since he handed her the wire slip. Now, voice low, she confirmed what the rest had only guessed. "That horse," she said, nodding toward the black Arabian, "was his. Before the syndicate bought him out." Before, she didn't finish the sentence, because everyone knew the story, but no one spoke of it. not at Hollow Ridge, not in polite company. The night the barn caught fire, the young apprentice, Eli, trapped inside. The stallion spooked and bolted through smoke, nearly trampling 2 others on the way out. They'd blamed the horse, said he cracked under pressure, too high-strung, too wild. But those who were there, who saw what Jack did, running back in, coughing blood into his sleeve, dragging Eli out with bare hands blistered and raw, those people knew different. Still the horse was sold. Quietly, Jack disappeared. The syndicate cleaned up the headlines, and no one ever saw the 2 of them together again, until now. Jack stepped slowly into the stall. No halter, no rope, just presence. Devil's Dust didn't retreat. He lowered his head slightly, eyes locked on the man like they were searching through a lifetime of silence for something still intact. Jack reached out. His hand brushed along the stallion's cheekbone, gentle, like touching the edge of a memory. "You remember," he murmured, not asking. A few yards away, the young groom stared in stunned stillness. The same horse that hadn't let a soul near him in months now stood quietly, calm, breathing slow, steady under the man's hand. The crowd watched, but no one moved, and for the first time since Devil's Dust had returned to Hollow Ridge, he looked whole, because he hadn't been waiting for healing, he'd been waiting for Jack. The saddle creaked under Jack's careful hands, leather worn but strong, every buckle tightened with quiet reverence. He moved like someone brushing dust from an old photograph, deliberate, slow, not out of hesitation, but respect. Devil's Dust stood still, as the girth was cinched, head low, eyes soft, no flick of the ears, no tension in the jaw, just presence. Like he knew this moment had been waiting for years. Jack didn't ask for help, didn't announce what he was doing. He simply turned to the manager, nodded once and said, "Open the gate." The handlers hesitated. "You sure you want to ride him now? We can bring the trailer round." Jack swung into the saddle with one fluid motion that belied his age. "He doesn't need a trailer," he said. "He needs memory." The gate creaked open. Dust didn't bolt, didn't pace, just stepped forward, hooves quiet against the packed earth. The perimeter of Hollow Ridge traced a wide oval path around the outer paddocks, framed by white fencing and clusters of red maples rustling in the wind. Buyers and trainers had begun drifting outside after word spread, something about the old man, the black horse, and the ride no one expected. They lined the fence, silent. Jack didn't cue him, didn't nudge or press. He just sat, light in the saddle, letting the reins hang loose, and Devil's Dust walked. 1 foot in front of the other, ears forward, body relaxed. It wasn't a show. There was no prancing, no canter, no whip-thin commands barked for precision. It was something else. Every few steps the stallion tilted his head like listening for an echo. Every turn of the path, his stride grew more sure, as if each hoofprint uncovered something buried beneath the surface. An old rhythm, a scent in the air, the muscle-deep memory of being ridden by someone who asked, not ordered. The crowd didn't cheer, they didn't dare. They watched. A girl whispered to her father, "Why's he not making the horse go faster?" "Because he doesn't need to." The man answered. By the final stretch, Dust's gait had settled into a proud, even walk. His head was high now, his steps purposeful, not the aimless drift of a horse broken down, but the composure of one who'd remembered who he was. As they passed the gate again, Jack dismounted slowly, boots crunching into the dirt. He didn't speak, just ran a hand once down the stallion's neck, and Dust exhaled, long and calm. Someone murmured, "It's like they're made of the same breath." The crowd didn't applaud, didn't need to, because what they'd just witnessed wasn't a performance, it was recognition. The wind moved softer through Hollow Ridge now. Mornings felt different, less clinical, more aware. The horses stirred earlier. Stable hands swore the air smelled cleaner, though no one had changed the feed or the bedding. Something had shifted, quietly, like something sacred had passed through and left fingerprints on the walls. Devil's Dust stood in the north paddock, coat sleek under the pale gold sun. His posture had changed, not just stronger, but fuller, present. When grooms passed by, he didn't shrink or turn his head. He watched them, measured, not with suspicion, but with discernment. They kept waiting for Jack Callen to return, but he didn't. No one had his phone number. No one remembered where he'd come from. The bank confirmed the wire, the paperwork was clean, the name was real, but after that day, he disappeared like fog before dawn. The only thing he left behind was a message, carved into the old cedar feed room door. Just beneath the hook, where halters hung, were 9 words burned into the wood, with the tip of a farrier's iron. He wasn't broken, just waiting for someone to remember. At first, no one touched it. Then someone cleaned around it. Then they stopped hanging halters there altogether. It didn't feel right. The wealthy trainer, the same one who had laughed loudest, who waved around dollar bills like leashes, read the carving one morning, while waiting for a delivery. He didn't speak, just stood there, one hand on the doorframe, eyes tracing every letter. He didn't laugh this time. Instead, he stepped into Dust's paddock, slowly, no rope, no show, just a man standing still in the dirt. The stallion didn't approach, but he didn't retreat either. He watched, listened, and in that silence, something true passed between them. Not connection, not yet, but understanding. Later that week, the trainer sent 2 horses from his string to a local therapy program. Ones he'd once called unfixable, said he was trimming down the roster. But when the stable manager asked why, he only said, they deserve someone who sees them. She didn't press, because Hollow Ridge had learned something in those quiet weeks. Not from a clinic, not from a seminar, from a man in a dust-covered coat, who came not to prove, but to remember, who left no legacy, but the one etched into silence, muscle and wood. The carving remains. Every new hand is told to read it, not because it's policy, but because every horse that walks through those gates might be another devil's dust, and every person might be just one quiet moment away from seeing what can't be bought. If this story stirred something in you, shared memory, quiet strength, or the power of second chances, give it a like, drop a comment, and tell us what moment in your life made you feel seen. And if you believe in stories that heal, reveal, and stay with you, subscribe now to never miss the next one, because some stories aren't just told, they're remembered.